The camp was dark even in daylight, its walls made of black stone that seemed to swallow all light. The air was heavy with smoke, ash, and the stink of burning metal. The sound of chains was everywhere, iron scraping against the ground, slaves dragging their tired feet. Among them was a girl, thin and weak. Her skin marked by lashes, her hair was tangled with dirt, her clothes little more than rags. She no longer remembered the softness of a bed, the warmth of a home, or the sound of laughter. All she knew was work, pain, and silence. They had taken her life, not just once, but every day, piece by piece when she was captured. She had screamed when her family was torn away. She had begged. But with time, her voice had gone quiet. Her spirit had broken. She had become one more shadow in the endless line of slaves. The guards were brutal, tall aliens with cruel eyes and sharp weapons. To them she was not a person, only a tool, something to use until it broke. They called her by a number, not her name sometimes. She wondered if her name even still existed that evening. She was forced to carry heavy stones across the yard. Her knees shook with each step. The chains on her wrists cut into her skin until blood mixed with sweat. She fell once and the guard struck her across the back. The pain made her cry out, but no one looked at her. Everyone knew better than to help. She lay on the ground for a moment. Her cheek pressed into the dust. Her breath came in short gasps. The sky above was gray and filled with smoke, she thought. Maybe this was the end. Maybe if she did not stand up, the guards would finish her life. And maybe that would be better than this endless suffering. But then she heard it, a whisper soft and close. A human voice, low but clear. "You're not alone." Her eyes widened, her heart skipped. For a moment she thought she had imagined it. Maybe her mind was playing tricks on her. But no, the whisper came again, closer this time. "Stay strong." She tried to turn her head. Tried to see who it was, but all she saw were chains and feet. The guards were shouting at other slaves, not paying attention to her. No one was near her, at least no one she could see. Her hands trembled, she forced herself to rise. Her legs burned, her back screamed in pain, but somehow she stood again. The guard who had struck her grunted and ordered her to move. She obeyed, but inside something had shifted. The whisper followed her like a hidden flame in the darkness. Later that night, after the work was done, she was thrown into a cold cell with 20 others. They all lay silent, too tired to speak, too hopeless to dream. She leaned against the wall, her chains rattling softly, and then she felt a shadow move beside her. From the darkness a face appeared. Not alien, not cruel, but human. His eyes were sharp but kind. His clothes were ragged, but his voice was steady. He bent close so no one else could hear. "I saw you today," he whispered. "You almost gave up," her lips parted. But no words came. Her voice had been silent for so long. The human continued, "Don't lose yourself. They want to break you, but you're stronger than they think." Tears stung her eyes. For so long she had believed she was alone. For so long no one had spoken to her with kindness. "Why," she finally managed to whisper. Her voice dry and weak, the human gave a small smile. "Because no one should suffer alone." Before she could ask more, he pulled back into the shadows, blending with the other slaves as if he was never there. The guards passed by, their eyes blind to him. She sat frozen, her heart racing for the first time in years. Her chest felt warm, fragile but alive. A whisper had given her something she thought she had lost forever: hope. That night, as she closed her eyes, she held on to the sound of his voice. She repeated the words silently to herself. "You're not alone." And in the endless darkness of the camp, for the first time she believed it might be true. The next morning came with the same cruel routine. The guards shouted, chains rattled, and the slaves were forced into the yard once more. The girl felt her body ache with every step. Her wounds from yesterday had not healed, but the memory of the whisper still burned in her chest. She kept asking herself if it had been real. Had someone truly spoken to her? Or had her mind made it up to protect itself? She wanted to believe it was real, because those words had given her the strength to rise again. As the sun climbed higher, she noticed something strange. Among the endless faces of suffering slaves, there was one that looked different. A man with eyes sharp and alive, his body carried scars. But his steps were firm, unlike the others. He did not move like a broken soul. He moved like someone hiding his strength. She realized then, he was the human from last night. Her heart pounded. She wanted to go near to ask who he was. But the guards were everywhere watching. Waiting for any sign of rebellion, she kept her head down and worked. but her eyes often drifted toward him at midday. When the slaves were given a few drops of water, the human slipped close to her. His chains rattled, but his voice was calm. Almost too calm for this place. Drink slow, he whispered. They give so little so you will fight each other for more. She froze, the cup of water shaking in her hand. He was speaking to her again. Not like the others who avoided her, but like someone who cared. Who are you? She finally whispered back, her voice barely a breath. No one important, he replied with a faint smile. Just another shadow in this place, but she knew he was lying. He was not like the others. Something about him carried weight. A secret she could not yet understand that night. When the slaves were thrown into the cell again, she waited. Her heart raced as she searched the darkness. Then he appeared, sliding down against the wall beside her. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim torchlight outside. You shouldn't talk to me, she whispered nervously. If the guards notice. They won't, he interrupted softly. They only see what they expect. And they expect us to be broken. She stared at him, unable to understand his calmness. In this place, even hope was dangerous, yet here he was, whispering as if he still believed in something. Why did you speak to me yesterday? She asked, her voice trembling. He leaned his head back against the wall, his voice low. Because I saw someone about to give up and I couldn't let that happen. His words struck her deeply. For so long she had believed her life meant nothing. But to him it had meant enough to whisper, enough to risk. She studied his face. You're not like the others, you move differently, You don't look broken. A faint smile touched his lips, but his eyes remained serious. Maybe I've learned how to hide the cracks. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of chains clinking and tired breathing of other slaves. Finally, he said, I need you to listen carefully. I can't explain everything now. But you must know this, there are ways out of here, but not everyone can make it. Only those who are willing to fight for something greater. Her chest tightened. She almost laughed. The idea of escape was madness. This camp had walls thicker than mountains. Guards with weapons and endless chains. No one had ever escaped. Escape? She whispered, her voice full of disbelief. That's impossible. Nothing is impossible, he whispered back firmly. His eyes locked on hers. Chains can break, walls can fall, and hope can rise again, but it starts with believing it's possible. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was a fool, but his words dug deep into her heart the way he said them. The certainty in his voice, it shook her. Before she could respond, heavy footsteps echoed outside. Guards marched past, their weapons clanging. Both of them fell silent, pretending to be asleep. Minutes passed before she dared to whisper again, Why me? Why are you telling me this? He looked at her, his expression unreadable in the shadows. Because I think you're stronger than you realize, and because when the time comes, I can't do this alone. Her breath caught in her throat. She had never been told she was strong, never been needed by anyone. She had been nothing but a number, but here, this human was saying she mattered. The thought terrified her, but it also lit something inside. A spark she could not ignore that night as she tried to sleep. The whisper echoed in her mind, louder than the chains. You're stronger than you realize. And for the first time she wondered if it could be true. The days in the camp felt endless. Each hour was filled with work, hunger and pain, yet for the alien girl, something had changed. The whisper from the human stayed with her like a flame in the dark. Every time her body grew weak, every time her spirit bent under the weight of chains. She remembered his words. She began to watch him closely. The human never acted like the others. He carried the same chains, ate the same thin scraps of food, and slept on the same hard floor. Yet his eyes were different. They were sharp, searching, always watching. He was not broken. He was hiding something. One night, when the guards had finished their rounds and the cell was quiet, she felt him move closer. His voice came again, low and careful. I need to tell you something, he whispered. Her heart raced. She leaned closer, afraid and curious at the same time. What is it? She asked, her voice barely audible. I'm not just another slave, he said. His eyes glinted in the dim light. I was a soldier once. I fought in battles far from here. I lost, and they threw me into this place. But I'm not done fighting. Her mouth fell open. A soldier? That explained his strength, his steady eyes, but it also filled her with fear. Soldiers were dangerous. They fought, they killed. They were the reason her people had been captured. Why are you telling me this? She asked, her voice shaking. He looked at her with a quiet intensity. Because you still have something inside you that they haven't taken. I saw it the day you fell. You wanted to give up, but you stood again. That means your spirit isn't broken yet, she shook her head. I'm nothing, I'm weak. I can't even carry stones without falling. You're wrong, he whispered firmly. Strength is not only in the body, it's here. He tapped his chest lightly. It's in refusing to let them take who you are. Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, but the weight of chains was too real. He leaned closer, his voice softer than ever. There is a way out of here, a tunnel hidden under the old quarry wall. I've been watching, studying, waiting for the right moment. Her eyes widened. Her first thought was disbelief. A tunnel? That's madness. If it were real, the guards would know. They don't look where they think no one can survive, he whispered. But I have seen it. I've gone close. The rocks hide the entrance. It leads beyond the wall. She felt her heart pound in her chest. The idea of freedom was too large, too dangerous. Why tell me? Why risk it? His gaze locked on hers, steady and unwavering. Because I can't do it alone, and because... His voice grew almost tender. Hope is stronger when it is shared. Her eyes filled with tears she hadn't allowed herself in years. For so long she had lived as if her life was already over. But here was someone risking everything to whisper a secret into her ear. Silence hung between them until she finally asked, If the tunnel is real, when will we go? Not yet, he said. We must wait for the right time. The guards will notice if we rush. We must be patient. Patient and ready. The days after that were different. Work was still brutal, chains still heavy, but she carried something inside her now, a secret no one else knew. Sometimes, when her strength faded, she would glance at the human. He would meet her eyes and nod slightly as if to remind her the whisper was real. One afternoon, while carrying heavy loads, a guard suddenly shoved her to the ground, his boot pressed against her back. She cried out, but before she could move, the human was there. His chains rattled as he fell to his knees beside her, pretending to help lift the stone. Don't cry, he whispered under the guard's nose. Stand. You can do it. His hand brushed hers for a brief moment. Steady and warm, she forced herself to rise, the pain screaming through her body. The guard sneered but walked away, thinking nothing of it. That night, lying in the cold, dark cell, she remembered his words, not just about the tunnel, but about herself. Strength is here, he had said, tapping his chest for the first time. She believed maybe he was right as she closed her eyes. She whispered softly to herself, repeating the secret he had shared. There is a tunnel. There is a way out. And with those words, her chains felt just a little lighter. The camp was restless that night. The guards were louder than usual, their boots echoing across the stone yard. The slaves lay chained together, pretending to sleep, but many kept their eyes open, waiting for the cruel morning to come. The alien girl could not sleep. Her mind was filled with the human's words. There is a tunnel. There is a way out. Those whispers had become her lifeline. She repeated them silently until they almost sounded like a prayer. When the guards finally left the cell, darkness filled the room. Only the faint glow of torches outside gave any light. Then, she felt the chains beside her shift. The human was moving, slow and silent. Her breath caught. She whispered, "What are you doing?" His voice came back, low but firm. "It's time. The patrol on the west side is thinner tonight. We try now or maybe never." Her whole body trembled. Her first thought was fear. Her second thought was doubt. "If we're caught, we won't be," he interrupted softly. His eyes glinted in the dark. "Trust me." Something in his tone silenced her doubts. He had spoken so many whispers before, and each one had carried truth. She nodded slowly. He reached into the folds of his ragged clothing, pulling out a thin metal shard. She gasped softly. How had he hidden it all this time? With quick movements, he worked at the locks on his chains. The sound was faint, almost lost under the breathing of the others. Within moments, the chains fell loose from his wrists. He turned to her, his voice barely a breath. "Give me your hands." Her heart raced. She extended her wrists, and he worked quickly. The metal scraped, sparks almost flaring, but then, click. The lock gave way. Her chains fell to the ground with a dull sound. She froze, terrified the guards would hear, but no footsteps came. "Stay close to me," he whispered. They moved through the cell like shadows, stepping over sleeping bodies. Careful not to wake anyone at the far end of the wall. He pushed against a loose stone. It shifted silently, revealing a gap. She stared. Her mouth open, he had not lied. There was truly a hidden way, one by one. They slipped through the hole. The passage beyond was dark, cold, and narrow. The walls scraped their skin as they crawled. She wanted to cry out, but the human kept whispering, "Quiet, keep moving." Minutes felt like hours as they crawled deeper into the earth. Finally, the tunnel opened wider, and faint air rushed against their faces. For the first time in years, she smelled something fresh. Grass, dirt, freedom, but then, shouts rang out behind them. The guards had noticed. The alarm bells clanged across the camp. "They know," she gasped, panic filling her chest. The human grabbed her hand firmly. "Run!" They stumbled out of the tunnel into the open night beyond the camp walls. The stars stretched above them, bright and endless. For a heartbeat, she felt free, truly free. But the sound of boots and snarling voices came quickly behind them. The guards were already in pursuit, their weapons flashing in the torchlight. The ground ahead split into two paths, one leading toward a dark forest, the other toward a rushing river. "This way," the human shouted, pulling her toward the river. They slid down the bank, mud splashing against their legs. The water roared, wild and merciless. She froze at the edge. "We'll die if we try to cross. We'll die if we stay," he whispered fiercely. His grip on her hand tightened. "Trust me one more time." The guards appeared at the top of the hill, their shadows looming against the torchlight. Arrows flew, striking the ground near their feet. One arrow cut across her arm, and she cried out in pain without another word. The human pulled her into the water. The river swallowed them instantly. Cold and violent, the current dragged them under, spinning them, tossing them like broken twigs. She fought to breathe, but water filled her lungs through the chaos. She felt his grip still holding hers, unyielding. She clung to him, even as the river tried to tear them apart. For endless moments, it felt like the water would consume them. Then, suddenly, they were thrown against the bank. Coughing and gasping for air, she lay on the wet ground, shaking, her chest heaving. The forest loomed ahead, dark and full of shadows behind them. The campfires glowed in the distance, and the sound of horns echoed. The guards would not give up. The human sat beside her, his face pale but his eyes burning with fire. "We're not safe yet," he whispered, "but we're closer than we've ever been." Her heart pounded. Fear filled her, but so did something else, hope. Fragile but alive, she looked at him, water dripping down his face, and whispered back, "I trust you." The forest waited before them, and behind them, death was coming fast. Their escape had begun, but the true danger had only just started. The forest was endless and dark. The trees rose tall like giants, their branches twisting into the night sky. Every sound felt dangerous, the rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, the cry of some unseen beast. But the alien girl and the human had no choice but to keep moving. Her feet were raw from the chains, and every step sent pain shooting up her legs. The human slowed his pace to match hers, even though he could have run faster alone. That made her chest tighten. Why risk himself for her? Behind them, horns still echoed faintly. The guards were searching. The forest gave them cover, but it was only a matter of time before the hunters caught their trail. At last they reached a small clearing. A stream trickled through the rocks, and the human stopped. He knelt beside the water, filling his hands and drinking deeply. Then he looked at her. "Drink." "You need it," she hesitated, then dropped to her knees. The water was cold and sweet. It was the first time in years she had tasted something that wasn't filth. She closed her eyes, letting it wash away the dust of chains for a brief moment. When she opened them, the human was watching her quietly. His face was tired, his body covered in scars, yet his eyes were still steady, still alive. "You saved me," she whispered. Her voice breaking, he shook his head. "No. You saved yourself, I only reminded you," she wanted to argue. But instead she lowered her gaze. Her hands trembled as she held the water. "I don't understand. Why risk so much for me? You don't even know my name." The human's voice was soft. "I don't need your name to know your worth." Her heart pounded. No one had ever said such words to her. For so long she had been nothing but a number, a broken tool. But here in the middle of a forest, a stranger told her she mattered. The sound of distant shouts cut through the moment. They both froze. The guards were still close. The human stood, scanning the trees. His voice became firm again. "We can't stay here. We move north toward the hills. There may be caves where we can hide," she nodded, forcing herself to stand. But her body wavered. Her knees buckled and she almost fell. He caught her quickly, his hands strong and steady. "I'm slowing you down," she whispered bitterly. Maybe, he admitted, then gave a faint smile. But I'd rather move slow with someone I trust than fast and alone. Those words sank deep into her heart. Trust, it was something she had forgotten, something she thought didn't exist anymore. And yet she realized she trusted him, more than she trusted herself. They continued through the forest until the moon climbed high. Finally, they reached a rocky hill and found a small cave. It was barely large enough for 2 people to sit inside, but it gave them shelter. The human gathered dry branches and struck sparks with a hidden shard of metal. Soon a small fire flickered, casting a warm glow over the cave walls. The alien girl stared into the flames, her chains lying loose at her side for the first time in years. She felt something other than cold and hunger. She felt warmth. She looked at him across the fire. You said you were a soldier, was that true? He nodded slowly, his eyes on the fire. Yes. I fought in battles across the stars. I saw death, loss, and cruelty. I lost comrades. I lost everything. When they captured me, they thought I would break like the rest. His gaze lifted, locking with hers. But they were wrong. She leaned closer, her voice trembling. Why me? Out of so many, why did you whisper to me? He was silent for a long moment, then he said, Because I saw myself in your eyes. Someone who had everything taken. Someone standing on the edge of giving up. I couldn't let that happen again. Not this time. Her throat tightened. Tears welled in her eyes. She turned her face away, afraid to let him see, but she whispered, I don't want to give up anymore. His expression softened. His voice dropped low, almost like the first night she heard him. Then don't hold on to that fire. It's yours. No one can take it. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. The night outside was filled with danger, but in that small cave there was peace. When she finally lay down, the warmth of the fire wrapping around her, she whispered softly, almost to herself, I trust you. The human, sitting guard at the mouth of the cave, glanced back at her and gave a quiet nod. Outside, the forest was full of hunters and shadows, but inside that cave something new had been born. Trust, fragile but powerful, and for the first time, she did not fear the morning. She was ready to face it. Because she was no longer alone, the morning came with silence, broken only by the crackle of the dying fire. The alien girl woke slowly, her body sore but her spirit lighter than before for the first time in years. She had slept without chains biting into her skin. The human was already awake, sitting at the mouth of the cave. His eyes scanned the forest carefully, every sound catching his attention. He looked tired, but his posture was strong, like a soldier standing guard. She rose and stepped toward him. Did you sleep at all? He shook his head slightly. Not yet. Someone has to watch. The guards won't give up so easily. Her chest tightened. He carried the burden for both of them. She wanted to say more, but before she could, the sound of movement reached their ears. Voices, faint but growing closer, the human stiffened. His hand went to the shard of metal hidden in his rags. He whispered quickly, We can't fight them here if they find us. We're finished. Fear gripped her heart. Where do we go? He pointed deeper into the hills. There's a resistance camp not far from here. I've heard whispers of it before. Rebels who escaped and still fight. If we reach them, we may stand a chance. Her eyes widened. A resistance camp? People who had defied the Empire? It sounded like a dream, but if it was true, then maybe freedom was more than just a whisper. They moved quickly through the forest, every step heavy with tension. The girl's body screamed with exhaustion, but she forced herself to follow. She trusted him now, and that trust carried her farther than her strength alone could. By nightfall, they reached a valley hidden between 2 jagged cliffs. Fires flickered in the distance, guarded by figures moving in shadows. The human stopped and raised his hand, signaling her to wait. This is it, he whispered. But we have to be careful. Rebels don't trust easily, especially not humans. Before she could ask, a voice called out from the shadows, harsh and sharp. Stop right there. Dozens of figures stepped forward, weapons drawn. They were aliens, scarred, armored, their eyes burning with suspicion. One of them, a tall woman with a scar across her face, stepped closer. Her gaze fell on the human. Then the girl. Who are you? Prisoners, spies. The human raised his hand slowly, showing he had no weapons. We escaped the slave camp. We came here seeking refuge. The alien leader's eyes narrowed. You're a human. Why should we trust you? Your kind helped build the Empire's machines. You fought in their wars. The girl's heart pounded. She looked at the human. This was the moment he warned her about. Trust would not come easily. Before he could speak, she stepped forward. Her voice shook, but she forced it out. He saved me when I was broken. When I had no hope, he whispered to me. He gave me strength to rise. He risked everything to bring me here. The rebels looked at her in silence. Some faces softened, others stayed hard with suspicion. The scarred leader frowned. Words are cheap if you want our trust. You must prove it. The human lowered his hands slowly. Then tell us how. The leader's eyes hardened. There's an outpost nearby. The Empire keeps weapons there, guarded but not impossible. If you truly want freedom, if you want our trust, you'll go there and bring something back, fail, and you'll die, succeed. And maybe we'll believe you. The girl's blood ran cold. An outpost? Guards' weapons? It was suicide. She turned to the human, whispering frantically, we can't do this. They'll kill us both. But his eyes burned with determination. Freedom always has a price, he whispered back. And I'm willing to pay it. The rebels gave them no time to argue. Weapons pointed. They pushed the human and the girl toward the path leading to the outpost. The night air grew colder, the stars sharp above them. As they walked, the girl's voice broke. Why do you keep risking everything? You've already saved me. The human glanced at her, his face calm but resolute. Because freedom isn't just about saving one life. It's about giving hope to many. If we stop now, everything we've done is wasted. Tears burned her eyes. She wanted to tell him to turn back, to save himself, but deep down she knew he would never stop. The outpost lights glowed faintly in the distance. The sound of guards' voices carried through the wind. The mission was real, and so was the danger. The human leaned closer, his voice once again a whisper in the dark. Stay close. Trust me one more time. And though fear gripped her heart, she nodded. For she knew now. Every whisper from him carried the fire of truth. And even if the price of freedom was death, she was ready to pay it at his side. The outpost stood like a beast in the night. Its walls of steel shone under torchlight, and armed guards patrolled every corner. The alien girl stared at it, her heart sinking. The rebels had sent them here to prove themselves. But this felt impossible. The human crouched low behind the rocks. Studying the movement of the guards, his eyes were sharp, focused. Calculating every step, he looked at her, his voice low and steady. We only need one crate of weapons. Enough to show the rebels we can fight, not more, not less. Her hands shook. If they see us, they won't, he interrupted gently. His whisper came like always, calm in the storm. Remember, fear is what they want from you. Don't give it to them. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath. She had trusted him so far, and every time, his whisper had kept her alive. She nodded. I'll follow you. They moved like shadows. Slipping from one rock to the next, the human led the way. Every step silent, every motion careful. The girl stayed close, her heart pounding so loud she feared the guards would hear it. At the back of the outpost, they found a small gate left open for supplies. 2 guards stood nearby, talking in low voices. The human leaned close. Wait here. Before she could stop him, he moved fast and silent. He struck one guard with his fist, the second with the shard of metal he carried. Both fell before they could shout. He dragged their bodies into the shadows. Breathing hard but steady, the girl stared at him in shock. He was more than just a whisperer, he was a fighter, a survivor. His scars were not just marks. They were proof of battles fought and endured. Inside the outpost, the air smelled of oil and metal. Rows of crates lined the walls, each marked with the Empire's cruel symbol. The human forced open one crate, revealing weapons, blasters, knives, and explosives. This is enough, he whispered. Help me carry it. Together, they lifted the crate, their chains clinking softly. Step by step, they moved toward the exit. Every moment stretched long. Every shadow felt like danger. Then, an alarm shattered the night. A guard had found the fallen bodies, horns blared, boots thundered. Lights flared across the outpost. They know. The girl gasped, terror gripping her chest. The human's voice cut through the chaos, firm and sharp. Run! They sprinted toward the woods, the crate heavy in their arms. Shouts and weapons fire chased them. A blast scorched the ground near her feet. She stumbled, nearly falling. But the human caught her, dragging her forward. The trees loomed ahead, almost there, almost free. Then a blast struck, the crate shattered, weapons scattering across the ground. The girl cried out, falling to her knees. her hands bleeding as she scrambled to gather the weapons. "Leave it," the human shouted. His body was turned toward the guards, shielding her. "We can't," she cried. "The rebels need proof." He looked at her, his eyes burning with fierce determination. "Then go. Take what you can carry and run." She froze. "What about you?" He gave a faint smile, the same one he had given her in the cell so long ago. "I'll hold them back." Her heart broke. "No." "You'll die!" He stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. His whisper came soft but strong, the same way it always had. "You're not alone anymore. Remember that." Tears blurred her vision, but she grabbed as many weapons as she could. Her body screamed in pain, but she forced herself to run. His voice echoed in her chest with every step. Behind her, the sound of fighting filled the night. Shouts, blasts, the clash of metal. She wanted to turn back, to help him, but his whisper drove her forward at last. She burst into the valley where the rebels waited. She dropped the weapons at their feet, her chest heaving. He's fighting them," she gasped. "He gave me hope, he gave me this chance, please help him." The rebels stared, stunned. Then the scarred leader stepped forward, her voice hard but full of respect. "You did more than prove yourself. You brought us what we need." She raised her weapon high. "We'll fight for him and for all of us." The valley erupted with movement. Rebels armed themselves with the stolen weapons. Charging toward the outpost, the girl stood at the front, her heart burning with fire. She was no longer the broken slave who had crawled in the dirt. She was stronger. She carried his whisper in her soul. When the rebels stormed the outpost, she saw him still standing, bloodied but unbroken. He looked at her across the chaos, and even without words, she heard his whisper again. "You're not alone." Together, side by side, they fought, and that night, the campfires burned not with chains and despair, but with the fire of freedom. She knew then that the Empire could take her past, her family, even her body, but they could never take the one thing he had given her, hope, carried forever in a whisper.